From CCTV cameras to the smartphones that are in everyone's pockets, millions of moments are recorded each and every day, frozen in time forever. But sometimes, just by chance, someone will press that record button and accidentally capture a clip right before horror. I'm Ryan from Tragedy Tales, and this week, once again, I'm back to showcase not 5 but 10 clips captured right before horror, from a bizarre ritual that turned to tragedy within seconds, to the man who pushed a wild animal too far. As usual, we've got cases from all across the world that are guaranteed to leave you grateful to be alive. So strap in and draw the curtains, and let's get right into it. This next, frankly bizarre footage was recorded in the coastal town of Budva, located in the southwest of Montenegro. The town of Budva is best known as Montenegro's main coastal tourist hub. People travel from far and wide to experience what it has to offer. Its main attractions include a beautiful old medieval town, and the surrounding Budva Riviera, a 35-kilometer stretch of coast, is known for its long beaches and amazing resorts. Of course, beaches like this are always flooded with tourists. However, they're often also full of people trying to make a quick buck. There's always a group of locals offering tourists cheap parasailing trips. One person that ended up parasailing was 19-year-old model Tijana Radonjic. Born and raised in Novi Sad, Serbia, Tijana was a rising star in Balkan fashion circles. Described by friends as kind, spirited, and unafraid of new opportunities, in May of 2025, Tijana was on holiday in Montenegro with her aunt, who were visiting from Serbia. Tijana had travelled to the area for work and decided to make a trip of it and bring her aunt along and have a holiday. A few weeks earlier, Tijana had taken a job for a short promotional shoot where she was hired to be photographed parasailing above one of Budva Riviera's beaches. The purpose of the photo shoot was to help an undisclosed parasailing company in Budva increase their business before the tourist season by showing someone having fun in the area. Makes sense. Apparently, Tijana had not even heard of parasailing before, but believing this to be a chance to try something that she usually wouldn't, and get paid to do so, she leapt at the chance and accepted the job. This all led to Friday the 31st of May, 2025. It was time for the photo shoot. That morning, Tijana arrived at the beach, smiling and happy, and was reportedly eager to get into the air. Before long, she was all strapped in, and just like that, she took off from the beach, soon soaring above the waters with no problems whatsoever. As she soars through the air, for what seems like no reason, Tijana looks like she begins to panic. Eyewitnesses heard her scream, get me down," and others reportedly heard her shout, "help me." A harrowing video shows her trying and struggling to remove her safety belt and harness, while being well over 100 feet up in the air. This video is almost impossible to watch. After she managed to break free from the waist buckle, she stripped off her life jacket, and once this was off, she wasted no time in flipping forwards and out of the harness, vanishing out of view and tumbling down almost 160 feet to the Adriatic Sea below. She dropped out of the sky like a lead balloon. Emergency services rushed to the scene and searched the water, trying desperately to help her. When you fall from this kind of height, the water acts like concrete. She'd sustained horrific injuries and was pronounced dead right there on the sand. Now, as this is a relatively fresh case, police and safety officials are still formally investigating the incident, confirming whether or not this was an accident, equipment failure, human error, or extreme mental distress. The company that hired her said that they were shocked and saddened at the tragedy, confirming that she had undergone several training sessions prior to the shoot. So this is just a very odd case. Why did she unbuckle the harness? It wasn't that they took her out and they were dodgy. Upon watching the footage, many assume this was intentional, but her family insists that she had no history of suicide or self-harm. This led some people to speculate that she may have suffered a panic attack and that she wasn't thinking straight when she unbuckled her harness. and maybe not realizing how dangerous a fall at that height could be. However, the only person that truly knows the answers to these questions is Tajana, and sadly she isn't here to tell the tale. So, as always, I'm interested in what you guys thought below. Next up, we've got a clip that unfolded on February the 8th, 2025, in southern South America, and more specifically, just off the coast of Chile. As cold winds blew over the beautiful mountain landscape, 23-year-old Adrian Simancas was out in the water in his kayak with his father, Dale. Ocean kayaking was something that the pair did often. They would bond while being in the open water, but what would occur that day, none of them could have anticipated. As usual, the pair paddled out into the depths in their inflatable yellow kayaks at around 3 PM. It was reported that the waves were manageable and that the wind was calm. Almost the perfect day to do some kayaking. Soon they'd made it a fair distance out, just off the coast of Chile, reaching the San Isidro lighthouse. All captured on Adrian's father's kayak-mounted camera, Adrian could be seen piloting his kayak, enjoying himself. He was paddling through the cold, choppy waters, minding his own business, when all of a sudden, a colossal beast emerged from the depths. It was a huge 50-foot humpback whale native to the area. It engulfed Adrian as well as his kayak, vanishing within a second. Just like Pinocchio, he was here one minute and the next, he was not. His father actually had no idea what had happened. All he heard was the splashing of water before turning around and realizing that his son was gone. He must have been beside himself, believing that his son had just died right in front of him in such a horrifying way. Then, before he could even process what was going on, all of a sudden, the whale spat him back out. He was dazed, but amazingly, completely unharmed. I do always say these clips don't mean death. Inside the whale, Adrian reported that he felt like he was inside a slimy cavity before he heard strange noises and felt a strong suction. He was worried that he would be completely swallowed and suffocated to death, but the whale spat him out. Apparently, after researching this, it turns out that he was actually never in any real danger. While humpback whales do have a big enough mouth to fit a person, their throat and their stomach are the size of a human fist, so it's impossible that he could have been swallowed. So, if for any reason you find yourself out in the open water, for some reason in the mouth of a humpback whale, don't worry. You have nothing to worry about. This next shocking footage was recorded in Andhra Pradesh, India, or more specifically in the village of Arandharapeta. Near this village is a famous temple, otherwise known as the Gampambala Swami Temple. This historic shrine is located in the dense forest region near the town, and the temple's sanctum is perched atop a steep, rocky, jagged hilltop. Right at the summit of this hilltop sits the idol of the preserving deity. At this temple, once a year, people climb up the hill and perform rituals here, and priests perform dance movements, all to please the deity. Despite Swami being one of the most challenging shrines to reach in the district, that doesn't stop hundreds of devotees climbing to the summit once a year. It's a location that offers a stunning, religious, but historical rugged setting. On August the 21st, 2021, it was that time of year again for the annual deity-pleasing ritual. Around 100 people from the local villages flocked up to the temple once again, all led by the temple priest, 49-year-old Appa Papaya. After climbing very precarious terrain, a large group reached the summit and began worshipping at the top. All on video, as everyone watched, Appa began to conduct ritual dances and worship rituals. This goes on for some time, but to complete the ritual, Appa was then to descend the same cliff while unprotected, holding only a bell and an arati plate in the other hand. The crazy part about all of this is that this cliff was oiled, massively increasing the risk of falling. All on video, Appa danced, he rang his bell, and chanted with the crowd as the drums rang out. He then covered his feet in oil, and it was time to make his way down the hill. Just as he starts this, tragedy strikes with brutal force. Appa loses his balance on the rocky slope and tumbles over the cliff face, straight down into oblivion. Appa plunged 100 feet down the chasm, hitting many jagged rocks all the way down. By the time he reached the ground, he was dead. Of course, footage of the fall was captured by several mobile phones, and it spread quickly all across social media, leaving countless viewers shocked. I saw this clip like 5 times on Instagram before I thought, right, I'll include it. What was meant to be an act of pure devotion had instead exposed the danger to following blind tradition, with no care for safety whatsoever. What makes it worse is that it was later revealed that Appa's grandfather also passed away in the exact same way during the exact same ritual on the hill. 2 generations of the same family had now died in the same way, on the same rocks, before the same deity. Weddings are meant to be the celebrations of life. Vibrant gatherings of family and friends, mixed with music, laughter and tradition. It's all fun and games, and everyone loves a good wedding. But for one family in Madhya Pradesh, in India, a day that was supposed to be full of celebration and joy instantly turned into a tragedy. This footage was captured on August 31st, 2024, in a resort in Vidisha. That day, the air buzzed with excitement. Relatives and friends had gathered for the Sangeet, or Haldi ceremony, of a cousin's wedding. Among the more than 200 guests was 23-year-old Paranita Jain, an ambitious MBA graduate who had travelled across India to take part in the celebration. Bollywood songs echoed through the speakers. This is when Paranita stepped forward to do a dance for her family. The DJ queued up a Hindi song that was guaranteed to hype up the crowd, and as it started playing, applause broke out instantly. This went on for around 30 seconds. She moved gracefully with the rhythm, twirling and clapping, drawing cheers from her family at the front of the stage. But then, without warning, Paranita faltered mid-step. She stumbled and collapsed face first onto the stage. At first, confusion ripped through the crowd. Some believed that it may be part of an act, but when she failed to get up, panic erupted. The music continued to play on the speakers as family members rushed forward and realised that her heart wasn't beating. They began performing CPR in front of the stunned family as others looked on in disbelief. Paranita was carried out of the hall and rushed to a nearby private hospital, but sadly, doctors confirmed what everyone feared. She had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest and nothing could be done. She was pronounced dead on arrival. Just hours earlier, she had been full of energy. She was a young woman who regularly went to the gym, practiced yoga, and had even undergone recent medical tests, all of which came back completely normal. For her family, the tragedy was even heavier because just years earlier, her younger brother had also died of a fatal heart attack, aged just 12. What should have been a night of song and dance will forever be remembered for the tragic loss of life cut short in front of hundreds. I don't know what it is about us, but we like to risk our lives for fun, just for the sake of saying I did it. Like climbing a mountain or cave exploring or skydiving, millions across the world love to do risky things. And one person who loved pushing the limits of life was 49-year-old Army veteran Jose de Alencar Lima Jr. Jose was a speed flying instructor who lived in Germany. Speed flying is a sport similar to paragliding, where an individual jumps up a mountain and glides down in a lightweight canopy. This sport is notoriously dangerous, as riders sometimes reach above 95 miles an hour while coming just inches away from slopes and obstacles. Any collision at this speed results in serious injuries and often death. For Jose, parachuting and flying and being in the air was second nature. He'd served as a paratrooper in the Brazilian army, skydiving for over 20 years, before leaving the military, taking up paragliding and speed flying, and eventually becoming an instructor in speed flying. On the 3rd of November 2024, Jose was in Brazil visiting family. Of course, in Brazil there's some beautiful mountains and hills to jump off, and he decided here that he would do some speed flying. Before long, he made his way to Pedra Bonita, a mountain located in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Here he climbed almost 800 feet up the 2,500 foot slope, and then he prepared for his flight. Now, it's unsure if he'd jumped from this exact spot before, but all on camera, he gets ready to jump. He's there on the rock with his parachute dangling on the floor. He runs up to the cliff edge and leaps off. But what he failed to notice was that his parachute had not fully opened, allowing him to tumble almost 800 feet to his death below. Horrified witnesses couldn't believe what they'd just seen. An instructor had just leapt off the cliff without any thought whatsoever. Some say by looking at the footage that he may have tripped, or he just stumbled as he tried to jump, which meant that the parachute didn't inflate, but I'm not sure. First responders were called, and officials descended to below the cliff, and after several hours of searching, recovered his body. He'd jumped hundreds, if not thousands of times, and nothing went wrong until it did. It goes without saying that snakes are dangerous, hostile, and deadly. In some parts of the world, this is a rare concern. Like in the UK, we ain't got to worry about snakes or spiders or anything like that. But in India, with its vast population and sheer number of lethal snakes, the danger is constant. Many people find them in their boots, or they find them in their garages or basements, and are bitten and die before antivenom could be administered. India records more snakebite fatalities than anywhere else in the entire world. They're home to the infamous Big Four venomous species of snakes. For rural communities, crossing paths with a snake is almost part of everyday life. Most people know to keep their distance, but for a few daring few, snakes become something else entirely. In India, there are people who dedicate their whole lives to snakes. They call themselves Sarp Mitra, or Friends of the Snake. Their work revolves around rescuing snakes from villages, returning them to their natural habitat, and keeping them safe, and keeping people safe from a dangerous snake bite. Sometimes, if there's a crowd big enough, before capturing them, they'll show off a little bit, and use the snakes for entertainment purposes in front of a crowd. These snake tamers use this as a way to display fearlessness, as well as control over the wild beasts. Of course, when this happens, you're asking for trouble, you're asking for a tragedy. One such man who claimed to be a Sarp Mitra was a man named JP Yadav from Bihar. JP was known as a devoted father and loving husband, and he had built a name for himself as a snake master. His online presence first grew through daring videos that he posted online, showing his extreme skill with dangerous species like cobra and vipers, while advertising his services to villagers who needed their snakes removed. He was the guy that you'd call if you had an unwanted snake, sort of like the Ghostbusters of snakes. He did this for years, helping locals by capturing the snakes. This was all leading up to Saturday the 6th of July, 2025. That day, JP was alerted to a residential area near Rajapakar police station that a cobra had been spotted. This cobra in particular was a Naja Naja, an Indian cobra, common all across the country, armed with venom so dangerous that it can easily be fatal. As he headed towards the scene, a large crowd had already started building on the street, and as the phones came out and people began recording, he began wrestling with the snake. Footage captured that day shows JP crouched on the ground. He smacks the snake, and then instead of capturing it and taking it away, as the audience was there, he instead begins to toy with it. JP begins to put on a good show for the crowd. After this, he proceeded to click his fingers, startling the cobra, each snap agitating it further and further. Then, finally, the cobra decides that it had enough. It lunges, striking forward, but missing JP by just a hair. The snake recoils after the failed strike, and seizing the moment, JP grabs it from behind with his bare hands. He lifts it up, and to close the performance, he holds the cobra in a familiar pose that he often showed his audience. But then, he feels a sharp jab, the cobra's mark of death. He had been bitten on his hand. Trying to stay calm in front of the audience, he presses against it, staying past the crowd, his expression shifting from pride to dread. JP turned to the crowd, asking for help, but they didn't know what to do. They weren't the snake experts, he was. In desperation, he tried sucking the venom out from the wound, but it was futile. The venom had already begun to circulate through his body, quickly thickening his blood, making it impossible for his heart to keep it pumping through his veins. Then, on camera, JP collapses into the mud. By the time they arrived at the local hospital, he was long gone. Sart Mitra's work is about capturing and returning creatures safely to the wild, not about antagonizing them for an audience. If there's anything you can take from this story, it's that a dance of death is one that we all join. When we get in the car, you dance with death. When you go on a plane, you dance with death. And just because you've rehearsed the steps 100, if not 1,000 times, it doesn't mean it's always going to end in your favor. So if you ever see a snake out in the wild, just remember this rule.
Red next to black, jump the fuck back. Red and yellow, cuddly fella.
But red is next to black?
Yeah, I don't know, it's fine.
New Year's Eve. Everyone's excited for the fresh start that's about to begin. People are making resolutions, families come together, and the energy is electric. Just about everyone looks forward to New Year's Eve celebrations, but one particular party that took place in Hawaii went way too far and unfortunately ended in a horrible tragedy. This entry begins on New Year's Eve 2024 in Honolulu's Salt Lake neighborhood. As darkness settled, one home that was known for its unusually epic New Year's Eve celebrations once again became the heartbeat of the block. As midnight neared, this particular home filled with 20 plus people, family, friends, children, all being invited over to the party, many bringing a hefty amount of fireworks, booze, and a lively spirit. Crates of these fireworks, some legal, many not, were stacked in the carport, just waiting for their moment to be lit. As the night progressed, midnight struck, 2025 had arrived, and it was now time for the first fireworks to be lit. Dark sky soon filled with bright colours as far as the eye could see. Cheers and laughs echoed out as the celebration spilled out onto the street. But, just after midnight, everything went terribly, terribly wrong. As the celebrations were well underway, this is when someone decided to light a large bundle of aerial fireworks on the driveway. These aerial fireworks, sometimes called cake fireworks, shoot many firecrackers into the sky. Once lit, they continue firing and cannot be stopped. Fireworks shot up into the air, and then it tipped over. As it tipped over, it continued firing, These fireworks shot into a nearby stockpile of other fireworks, igniting those as well, starting a deadly chain of reactions. You're supposed to light these on solid, flat ground. However, many people, including in this case, decide to light these on their driveway right in front of their home. Driveways aren't always even, leading to them falling over and sometimes causing this. Within seconds, hundreds of pounds of fireworks that they had sat right there ignited. This was all captured on camera by a drone. This drone just happened to be passing by and it captured the fireworks just as they ignited. You can see the sheer force that was at play here. The initial explosion sent a shockwave through the neighborhood, followed by a rapid series of detonations that lit up the entire block like a battlefield. Mortar shells launched in every direction, some rocketing up into the sky, others slamming into windows, parked cars, and rooftops. Those closest to the blast were thrown to the ground, lucky to be alive. 3 people were killed instantly. A 4th later died from injuries that day.
This footage shows some of the first moments of the tragedy, just a scene of chaos. You can see huge piles of black and burnt debris lining the street, windows blown out of that home and on nearby cars, people rushing out of the garage trying to get help.
2 women were pronounced dead at the scene, and a 3rd woman later died from her injuries. More than 20 were injured. Many of them had critical injuries with burns over their bodies and shrapnel wounds. Tonight, they are fighting for their lives. EMS says a 3-year-old child was also transported to the hospital in an ambulance, but many others took themselves to the hospital.
The truth is that people had traumatic injuries so badly that brain material was across the sidewalk from the ferocity of this explosion. And we want people to hear that, because that is what is really possible with these explosive fireworks.
More than 20 others were rushed to hospitals in critical and serious condition. Among the injured were 6 individuals between the ages of 20 and 30, suffering burns covering 45 to 80% of their bodies. With Hawaii's burn unit unable to handle the volume of the casualties, all 6 were flown to the Arizona Burn Center in Phoenix. 5 people were placed in medically induced comas and kept alive on breathing machines. In the coming months, for 2 people, their burn injuries proved fatal, bringing the final death toll to this horrible disaster to 6. Police soon began investigating what had went wrong, quickly discovering roughly 500 pounds of unused illegal fireworks in the cars and vehicles belonging to partygoers. In the days that followed, 10 people were arrested on suspicion of Class C felonies, including first-degree endangering the welfare of a minor. This tragedy reignited Hawaii's ongoing debate over illegal fireworks. Many requested the government crack down on those found to be in possession of illegal fireworks, requesting for stricter enforcement to prevent more disasters like this in the future. A celebration meant to welcome the new year instead left countless families shattered and the local community grieving. This shocking and horrifying footage was recorded on August 10, 2016, in the market town of Newbury in the United Kingdom. That fateful morning, the sun was shining and it was overcast and it was a bit windy. You know, the typical British summer's day. Cutting through the heart of England is the A34 dual carriageway. This road stretches from Winchester on the south coast all the way to Salford in Manchester. As always, every day it carries a constant stream of traffic. Tens of thousands of people travel along this road each and every day. One lorry driver that was doing his day-to-day, driving a 40-ton Mercedes lorry along the A34, was 30-year-old Thomas Croker. Thomas, a Polish national living in Hampshire, had worked as a lorry driver for some time. That day, at around 2:30 p.m, he had finished his job for the day of driving a car transporter full of vehicles across the country. It was now time to head home. Making his way along the A34, Thomas drove without any issues, until approximately 10 minutes past 5. At this time, Thomas was still driving northbound along the A34. By this time, Thomas had been driving all day and was just an hour away from finishing. All captured on his dash cam, however, as he drives along the dual carriageway, Thomas can be seen rocking out to music before he becomes distracted with his phone. Apparently, he was scrolling through his music library until he looks up and saw a row of stationary traffic only a few hundred feet in front of him. Travelling at nearly 50 miles an hour, you can see a look of panic flash across his face as he slammed on the brakes, but it was already too late. His 26-ton lorry slammed into the back of the queue like a bulldozer, impacting a line of 2 heavy goods vehicles and 4 cars. The first vehicle he struck was a Vauxhall Zafira, driven by Mark Goldsmith, with his 13-year-old son Jake in the passenger. The impact hurtled their car forwards into the vehicle that was ahead of them, a Vauxhall Corsa carrying the rest of the family. They were all returning home from a camping trip in Devon. Inside this Corsa was 45-year-old Tracy Houghton, as well as her sons 13-year-old Ethan, 11-year-old Josh, and her stepdaughter, 11-year-old Amy Goldsmith. Their car was shunted forward, and as it did, it was forced beneath the rear of a heavy goods vehicle that was in front of them. In just a second, it was all over. Clanking of metal and the screams of agony rang out into the air, and Thomas then stepped out of his lorry to find absolute horror. It was a bloodbath. The Corsa, containing most of the family, had been shunted forward and forced under the heavy goods vehicle, compressing it to just a third of its size. Everyone inside, Tracy, Ethan, Joshua, and Amy, were all dead. All because Thomas wanted to put on a tune. He was too distracted with his phone that he didn't look forward. A complete and utter tragedy unfolded on the motorway. In the crash, he impacted 2 other vehicles, severely injuring 4 more. One car was completely flipped onto its roof, with its occupant breaking their back. I can only imagine what it must have felt like for Mark and his son to get out of the car, hoping and praying that everyone was okay, and realizing that they were all gone. First responders flooded to the scene, and firefighters worked to pry victims from their mangled wrecks using the jaws of life, as Thomas stood by the roadside, watching and smoking cigarettes. When questioned at the scene, he told police that his brakes had failed, and that the traffic in front of him just appeared. It just stopped right in front of him. He then broke down at the scene, screaming that he had killed them. The following day, as police conducted their investigation, Thomas was asked by his company whether or not he had been distracted in the crash, and he replied that he had his radio on and that he wasn't tuning it and that he wasn't on his phone. However, he soon changed his story in the following days when police discovered the dashcam footage, clearly showing him on his phone.
Had Croker been watching the road that evening, it's possible he would have had up to 45 seconds to see the traffic ahead at a standstill. Crushed beneath a lorry in front, Tracy and the children stood little chance of survival.
Just under 3 months later, Thomas appeared at Reading Crown Court, and here he showed a lot of remorse, breaking down when the footage was shown to the court. The court heard that he had been so distracted that he was barely looking at the road for almost a kilometre. It was also revealed that just hours earlier, when he dumped the cars, here he signed a declaration promising that he would not use his mobile phone as he went home. Judge Mara McGowan described the case as one of the most horrific that she had ever seen, and while passing sentence, she said that his attention had been so poor that he may as well have been driving with his eyes closed. Ultimately, he pled guilty to 4 counts of causing death by dangerous driving and 1 count of causing serious injury by dangerous driving, and was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. Many people, including me and the family, feel like this sentence was nothing compared to the agony that he had inflicted.
In the moments Mr. Croker chose to look at his phone, he caused a multiple vehicle accident and took the lives of Tracy, Ethan, Josh, and my daughter Amy. He was so distracted, he made no attempt to slow down. The sentence of 10 years in prison will not ease our pain and suffering. nor do we believe it will send a strong enough message to those who lack the self-restraint to not use their mobile phones whilst driving.
Victims' families launched an appeal in the following year to extend his sentence to 25 years, but they were swiftly denied, the judge stating that this sentence was fair and that the case was complex. Their family was returning home from a holiday. They were likely in good spirits, but sadly, the majority of them never made it home. Nights in the capital of Mexico, Mexico City, have a gravity all on their own. As darkness settles on the area, the streets continue to hum with people and traffic. Food stalls glow under fluorescent lights, and the Avenida Tláhuac, one of the city's major roads, pulsed with its usual rhythm. Running directly above this road was an elevated viaduct, part of Metro Line 12, known as the Golden Line. This viaduct stretched nearly 25 kilometers across the capital from the southeast to the west. For long stretches, it shadowed the boulevard below. Its massive concrete pillars supported the trains as cars whizzed by underneath. On May 3rd, 2021, it was no different. It was an ordinary night. Neighbors lingered outside as cars made their way down the boulevard. At around 10:22 p.m., an eastbound train approached Olivos Station. This train wasn't at full capacity. It was around 3/4 full, and for most, it was just another late ride home. At the controls that night was driver Rodrigo Garcia. The journey had been completely uneventful until he got to around 700 feet away from Olivos Station. Here he felt a sudden jolt. At this time, his control panel showed a power failure, and he immediately activated the emergency brake. The train screeched to a stop. Garcia could see smoke and confusion as passengers rushed towards the rear. Following the crowd and the chaos, the driver eventually reached the end, and to his horror, he found that 2 cabs were completely gone, missing entirely. At this point, he had no idea what had happened until he reached the station just 700 feet away, and here he realised that a portion of the overpass had collapsed. This was all captured on CCTV. The footage shows the elevated track suddenly buckling, and in just a matter of seconds, it completely gives way like it was nothing. This all happened as a train was passing, and as it passed along, the final 2 rail cars broke free and plunged onto the road below. Astonishingly, the remainder of the train continued ploughing forwards until obviously the driver realised something was wrong. As the train carts fell, they disappeared into a cloud of dust and debris, one of them striking a passing vehicle, instantly killing the driver and leaving his wife in critical condition. Many people were injured, whether that be falling out of the train cars, being hit by debris as it crumbled onto the road. People who were nearby rushed to aid those who were trapped, pulling survivors from the wreckage before first responders even arrived. Rescue operations were soon suspended due to the instability of the structure. It literally was crumbling all around them as they tried to work. Because of this, a crane was brought in to carefully lift sections of the train while search teams looked for survivors. By midnight, 15 people were confirmed dead, with 98 others hospitalized. In the days that followed, the death toll rose to 26. The public outcry was immediate. Anger erupted across the city. Protesters vandalized metro stations, smashing glass and painting slogans like, "It wasn't an accident, it was negligence." Demonstrators marched to the collapse site with banners reading, "Corruption kills," and those responsible have names.
Pues el mensaje es individual de cada persona, pero en general estamos indignados, estamos enojados.
But the burning questions as to how this happened did not fade. Locals and those affected couldn't help but wonder how this could be allowed to happen. A train line that was so busy should have been well maintained. So what caused it to collapse so suddenly? Claudia Scheinbaum, the head of Mexico City's government, hired Norwegian firm DNV to analyze the failure. Their findings revealed that major flaws, missing studs, poor welds, fatigue beams, and design changes caused the track's instability from the very beginning. These reports concluded that the structure had not met quality standards, was poorly supervised, and lacked critical safety elements. Maintenance checks were either never carried out or were totally insufficient. And then in 2017, an earthquake occurred and caused further damage to the road. While officials said repairs were made, residents reported seeing cracks and reported problems, and nothing was done. Of course, as they always do, the construction companies that built it denied any wrongdoing. The viaduct had been built by a consortium that included firms tied to a billionaire named Carlos Slim. They argued that their contractual responsibility for maintaining it had long since passed, and that Carlos should have been responsible for this. Eventually, the collapsed section was rebuilt, and the entire line underwent comprehensive maintenance. However, despite it now being fully rebuilt, the collapse is remembered as far more than an accident. For locals, it stands as a failure of oversight, construction, as well as accountability. Still, as I say this, nobody has been held accountable for a catastrophe born of shoddy builds, minimal maintenance, and ignored warnings, resulting in the deadliest accident in Metro's history in nearly half a century. But that is the end of the video. Wowzers trousers, from the man who got swallowed by a whale to the terrifying collapse in Mexico City. Once again, I'm amazed that I'm still able to find such wild clips to show you all. Then we've got Jose, leaping off a cliff and his parachute failed to inflate. This one is quite weird because the way he just happily leapt off the cliff, believing it to be safe, is quite chilling. He didn't even look behind him to see if his parachute was inflated, but at least he went out quickly. Of course, we can't forget Adrian, who was swallowed by a whale, all on camera. That has to be some of the craziest footage that I've ever seen, and while he wasn't in any danger, who in the world can say they've been inside the mouth of a humpback whale? Very impressive, and of course I'm glad that he didn't sustain any injuries. Sadly, the same can't be said for the priest who tumbled off an oily, rocky mountain while conducting a bizarre ritual. I'm all for praying and, joining in with all the stuff, but this is so far from safe, it's not even funny. Oiled rocks? Climbing down with no hands? It's like they want them to die. And the fact that his grandfather died performing the exact same ritual says a lot. Then we've got the sudden death of 23-year-old Paranita. This one actually surprised me quite a lot. She was so young, younger than me, and died just like that. Now, I've said this in my previous videos, but everyone lives like they're going to live to 80. But she died from what seems like natural causes before she even hit 25. She didn't even make it to a third of the way there, and that's awfully tragic. One I can't forget is Tijana unbuckling her parasailing harness in Montenegro. This one is a very perplexing case. None of it makes sense to me. While I understand one may panic being this high, especially if you've never done it before, the next step for any rational thinking person would not be to unbuckle the harness, the one thing keeping you up in the air. It just doesn't follow any of the normal basic thought processes that a normal person would have. The one that annoyed me the most in this was the snake tamer in India. He called himself a friend of the snakes, a rescuer, but he was using them to impress crowds, so it's no surprise that one mistake cost him his life. A cruel reminder that no matter how many times you've danced with death, it just takes one misstep for that dance to end. Then we had the fireworks disaster in Hawaii that left 6 people dead and many more severely burnt. That footage was crazy. I've covered some fireworks disasters in the past, but those were at factories. This was at a residential home. One of the worst videos I've seen on this channel so far was Thomas. Driving distracted, this one just makes me continuously tear up just thinking about it. I imagine my family being in that car and my family being wiped out in the blink of an eye because one bloke just didn't care. I would be just beside myself. It's just immeasurable, the agony that he caused. And I know he didn't mean to do this, but when you're driving such a heavy vehicle, you must be responsible for your actions. And 10 years just doesn't seem right for the future of 4 innocent people. Truly a shocking case. And last, but certainly not least, we've got the overpass collapse in Mexico City. How sudden it collapses is wild, and the amount of people injured and dead was staggering to me. I wasn't expecting that many people to be hurt at all. The worst part about all of this is that it could have been avoided if any officials or anyone did what they should have done and maintained it and stopped people using it. But no maintenance was conducted, it was ignored, and I hope those responsible are held accountable. But most importantly, what did you guys think of this one? As always, I'm intrigued as to what you guys thought below. As you guys know, I do try and read each and every comment. But if you made it this far and you're into this kind of content, why not check out my Patreon linked in the description below. Over there, I upload fully uncensored, uncut, and ad-free videos, how they were always meant to be viewed. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click that link in the description. And while you're down there, go ahead and click that subscribe button and tickle that notification bell to be alerted at when I release content such as this. Oh, and I also open members if you want to donate me 99p a month just to support me over here. But with all the plugging aside, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.